Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Defcamp here, and welcome to DefTalk, the talk show that focuses on everything World of Warcraft, whether it's classic, retail, or the players that play it. We're going to cover it all. Today, we have with us the one and only Melderon. How you doing, Melderon?
Hello, everyone. Good to be back.
Yes, good to be back. This is episode number 34 of DefTalk. Damn, I can't believe we've gotten that far already. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
And with us today, we have a very special guest, a huge friend of the channel, has been supporting and watching us for a very long time. And this has been a Def Talk that's been in the making, and I'm just very glad that we finally have gotten to it now. Krymzon28, how you doing, brother? Thank you so much for coming out.
What's going on, fellas? Glad to be here.
Dude, I know it's been a while. We've been trying to get this going for a while with Melderon getting his new job. It's been hard to put out, more Def Talks and all, but I'm just so glad that we finally put a date aside and did this because I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, brother.
Yeah, the one thing's been driving me nuts is that we haven't been able to do a Def Talk in a while, and it just sucks, but,
Yeah.
Nature of the
But
beast.
here we are today. So Krymzon, first things first, let's start off where we start with everyone. I want to know, how did you get introduced to World of Warcraft?
My story begins back in late 2004. I'd never really dabbled in computer games at all, MMO games at all. I don't think on a computer I ever played was, like Age of Empires, Roller Coaster Tycoon and crap like that. I was a console guy, and a family friend, sort of. I always considered him an unfortunate acquaintance, but he was a family friend. Told me about the game. And I remember him telling me about, like that's all open world. You can go town to town and go out and kill stuff and do quests. And it's an MMO, so there's other people running around. And I remember hearing him tell me about it, and I was pretty interested in it. And, like, in my mind, I'm picturing, like, Oblivion-level graphics. Like, I'm picturing, like, realistic-looking graphics.
Yeah.
And his friend had played the beta and then got an account when it came out. So he had played on his friend's account, and he had just got his account right around the Christmas time. And so that's when he showed me the game. And I created a character, I went with pretty much what about 40% of Alliance players went, and they made it a Dwarf Warrior, or a Dwarf Hunter, because they wanted the bear pet. And then realized immediately after creating it that they're not going to have the bear pet for 10 levels. So
Was his name Gimli?
Huh?
Was his name Gimli or something like it?
No, I couldn't even,
Oh,
man, I couldn't even tell you what the name of that guy was, but I just remember creating them, and then being like, where the hell's my bear? And my buddy tells me, he's like, yeah, you're not going to get a bear until like level 10. I don't want to do this no more. So I just started just wandering around. I ran to Ironforge, was just blown away by how everything looked. The world seemed so big, and you're just running around, all the sights and sounds. Everything was amazing, and then by the end of the night, because this was just the first day that I played, by the end of the night, I had actually ran all the way to the Valley of Kings in Loch Madan.
Wow.
Just dying the whole way there, getting mauled by bears on to get there and everything. Because I remember my buddy the next day looking at my characters in ghost form. I was like, why the hell are you in Loch Madan? And so I explained to him. But after that, I created my first real character, which would have been a human warrior. I got my account on my birthday in March 2005, and so I had him delete that character, and I recreated it. So Snap was my first ever true tune.
Oh, Snap.
Yeah, exactly. He was a human warrior, and had one hell of a summer. I can tell you that much. It was such a great game to play.
And so you were playing with friends. It sounds awesome. So it sounds like you were really encapsulated by just the magnitude of the world and how big it was. And that was something that when I first started playing, I didn't really realize just how big I don't think I could understand just how big it was until I started getting out of Teldrassil and I started a night elf character. So I'm in this little island, right? And it felt big, but I really didn't realize. I never even looked at the map or anything like that until I was a little bit later. So I didn't realize just how big the world was. But when you first get that sense of holy shit, I'm just this little piece of this huge wheel. It's such an awesome feeling, especially like you said, coming from games like Age of Empires and playing all these other games where, I've played open world games before like Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and this, that, and the other, but nothing compared to that feeling when you realize just how big Azeroth was. And that's something that vanilla WoW did so well, is in no other iteration of the game did the world feel that big, even though, it got bigger with all these other, islands, this, that, and the other, but there was just so much to explore, so many quests that took you here, there. I mean, look at the shaman quest, for example, takes you all over the place, and I think as a new player, like seeing that and actually being put, in this world and being able to explore wherever you want to go is just such an amazing feeling.
I think one of the things that Vanilla WoW encapsulated more than any current version or recent version of the game that helped make the world feel so much bigger than it was there was access to that world was not just limited, but it took a long time to gain access to parts of the world because the leveling process was so slow.
Exactly.
My favorite thing about Vanilla WoW was that you weren't treated like the swinging dick of Azeroth. You weren't this unstoppable killing machine. You were just like, here's your sword. Go out there. Those kobolds are going to wear you out, but go get some stuff over you anyway. It's like they did a great job of making you feel like an adventurer. And coming from playing console games, like Final Fantasies and other RPGs, to go into World of Warcraft was a huge jump in style, and it was a really, really big difference. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and the open world aspect of it was probably the coolest part. Seeing other people walk by and looking at them and thinking, it's like, wow, man, look at that gear, look at that person, and then going out in the world myself. But seeing all those zones that I wanted to go into, I couldn't wait for. Vanilla WoW set that up perfectly to where you always had something to look forward to when you logged on. When you're running along the shores of Elwyn Forest and you're looking across the water at the question mark level, the skull wolves on the other side, just thinking like, one day I'm going to be on that shore whipping that wolf's ass, just not today. And and it gives you something to look forward to.
Yes.
And nowadays, with everything being so easy access and your character just blowing through the world, it makes it seem a lot smaller. When you would go into a zone to do the quest, those quests, that environment that you're in would stick with you because you're in there for so long. It seemed like a much bigger world than it was. Nowadays, when you play through a zone, it's forgettable because everything's so quick, so fast paced. It'll take you, what used to take many hours to do, now it takes just a short amount of time, and so there's really nothing memorable about the zones. The aesthetics are nice; they're beautiful zones. But there's you don't have any anything to really remember because there's nothing special going on. You're just grinding through quests and moving forward.
And I think the mysticism of it as well is like not knowing it, which is gone now for a lot of people, right? But not knowing what was going to be next, and going to this zone or you get a quest and it's I get to go to Red Ridge Mountains now, and then you get the story of Red Ridge Mountains and. Even as and I gotta say this, even as a seasoned player, right? Like for me, going back, and Melderon had the same experience as well. Going back and playing an Alliance character again, since we've done Horde so many times, we actually got a piece of that. And I know I did. I'm sure Melderon did as well. We got a piece of that feeling again, of that mysticism, of that that amazing feeling of like doing this fresh again, which is really cool because you actually can, and I think this is true for me at least. But you actually can get that feeling again to a certain extent, right? By doing before. So in my experience, of course, played a lot of Horde, right? My first character, however, was an Alliance rogue. But I only experienced the Night Elf zones. I did a certain path, right? So, and I said, you know what, Melderon, let's make Alliance characters again. Let's experience, this part of it. And we did it, and it was so awesome because, even though I don't like the Alliance that much. I mean, but it was so cool to experience this all again for the first time. And it's just like, what other game can do that? 15 years old, and you still get that feeling as if you're playing it maybe for the first time.
I think that's what a lot of people are excited about Classic, because the way Vanilla operated, you weren't like. To an extent, you weren't stuck with the role or the class that you chose, depending on the amount of free time you may have been. But because everything took so much work to do, how many people, because I've never met one, how many people do you know had a level 60 of every class?
Oh,
nobody.
I don't know anyone who has done that.
Yeah,
exactly. So, so for me, I only played 2 classes as a main in Vanilla WoW. I played my warrior up to 56, and then wasn't very good at it, so I decided to level a paladin, which was way easier for me. I capped the paladin at 60 a couple weeks before the Burning Crusade, so I didn't actually get to do any progression rating. I did get to dabble in a couple of pug runs.
I didn't really exactly same.
And so I look at it as if I play. So here's the other neat thing. So just real quick I played Alliance up through Wrath of the Lich King. I didn't switch to Horde until Cataclysm, and when Cataclysm came out, I just faction changed. I never leveled. So the pre-Cataclysm Horde leveling experience, I've never actually experienced. So for me, when Classic WoW drops, it's going to be a much more authentic feeling for me because I'm going to be leveling as a Horde character, which is something I've never done from 1 to 60 at all. So it's going to be really awesome to do for me because I have experience as a paladin, I've experience as a warrior, but even if I just played a different class, it would be the same content, the same game, but experienced in a different way, which is, I think, what a lot of people should go for. You don't want to go and try to recreate all those memories that you have because those memories aren't going anywhere. You'll always have them,
Absolutely.
I don't want to recreate the stuff that I did. I want to do the things that I didn't do so I can make new experiences and have fun in a different way.
Wow.
That's what my goal is for retail.
I mean, dude, you bring up a great point because I myself, I want to ask you in a second, but so I myself, first my first character was Alliance, right? I played my Alliance rogue, and I got him up to 60, and then towards the very end of vanilla, I made my Horde priest. And in playing private servers, I wanted to recreate that priest and experience it more on the priest side of things because I love vanilla priest. You know what I mean? It's one of my favorite classes of all. My favorite class and race combinations, undead priest. Throughout everything, BC, Wrath. So I really wanted to recreate that again in classic. But I definitely understand what you're saying because doing when I made my dwarf rogue on another server. And experiencing that for the first time, playing a dwarf, leveling through Dunmoreau, Lochmadon, was so amazing. And for a lot of people, and I say this in my streams all the time, like, guys, do yourself a favor. If you've never played a healer, if you've never played a tank, if you've never done this, now is your time to do it. Because, yes, a lot of us fall in love with these one classes and this one thing, and we get stuck to it. But it's almost like you're robbing yourself of these amazing experiences because even if you're a hardcore Horde player, I know it sucks. I know you don't want to. I know everything's telling you don't play an Alliance character, but you're missing out on so much, so many quests, so many amazing stories, and this, that, and the other. And even just from a purely PvE aspect, just go out and do some quests and explore. And I think, obviously for some people, they don't want to do that, but I think everyone should at least, try something you haven't done before. Now's the time to do it. So, have you played private servers, or no? You didn't play them all, right? You didn't.
I dabbled on it. I created a character last year, a mage, on one of the private servers. So I leveled him to about 30. But I wasn't. My goal was just to kind of get some of the nostalgia out of the way, so that I wouldn't be too distracted because I'm easily distracted. So I didn't want to sit there and just I wanted to get all the nostalgia out of the way, but I did Alliance though, so because I wanted to try to keep the Horde thing fresh. I did end up making a character on the most recent private server that was released back at the end of March. I think it's Netherguard or whatever. I created a little Shamar on there just to kind of dabble with it, and I only played through the first 16 levels of it, and I was like, I cannot wait to get this dude to 60 and Classic because this is going to be a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of us, myself included, I couldn't wait. Melderon, I was playing Legion, and I was pretty hardcore in the Legion. I was doing Mythic raiding and all that stuff, and I was playing what was I playing Melderon almost every night, right?
Oh yeah, every night, absolutely, yeah.
Every night, Mythic raiding. We had no life in it, and we're one of the best skills on the server. Playing a Holy Paladin, one of the best Holy Paladins. Yeah, one of the best Holy Paladins. But I was really into it. But it wasn't so much that I was into the game. I was kind of So whenever I played WoW again, whether it was in other expansions, and it was always me trying to recapture a lot of those things that I fell in love with in vanilla, and I never would, right? And I would get hooked in usually to the social aspect. So my thing that kept me playing was my guild, right? I loved a lot of the people that I raided with. One of my friends, Kigo. I met a lot of really good people over there, so I don't regret it at all. But I got to say, the gameplay aspect of it very much was I was not a fan of it. So many of the things I was not a fan of. Melderon started playing on private servers, and I, held off for a little bit. I'm like, oh, I want, I really do that. I don't want to have to download this, giving myself excuses. And then finally, I just gave in, and for me, I really, 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 I don't regret that, because I think I learned a lot more, especially about my class, because I really didn't play too much of the priest in late game vanilla. It was more of towards BC. I got into 60 at the very tail end of vanilla, so I really wasn't too familiar. So I did learn a little bit more about my class and this and that and the other. But I think about this at the end of the day. I'm like, would I have been better off if I would have just waited? You know what I mean? I don't know. I think maybe yeah, because so much of what I experience now is I don't want to say it's been tainted by private servers. That's not true, but it's hard now for me to remember, like, was this the way it was in vanilla, or am I just remembering private servers? You know what I mean? I know Melderon has the same problem a lot. It's like, when we're
yeah, I mean, it's almost impossible, right? So I talked about my beta impressions video. Yeah. I don't know anyone who would admit, or maybe they would admit it, just they would say it just to kind of be like, oh, I remember everything, dude. I don't remember what happened 3 days ago versus what happened 15 years ago. Yeah, so like anybody who I think says that they do is either full of shit or a savant, right? So I don't know. Again, private servers did muddy the waters a little bit for us. So it kind of, if it wasn't for private servers, number one, I wouldn't have made this channel. Number two, I wouldn't have known the level of I know about the game now. They provided an amazing sandbox for people.
And Classic may not have came out if it wasn't for private servers.
I was just talking about personal, but absolutely, they wouldn't have came out.
If it wasn't for private servers, I don't think Blizzard would have been aware of the demand for classic content as private servers really opened up an avenue when they're looking at the volume of people that are choosing to play an illegally produced game. For paying $15 a month, when every one of the people would be more than like, it's funny because every person on a private server would be like, I would be willing to pay Blizzard $15 a month just to let me play vanilla WoW.
Absolutely.
Legitimately. Mm-hmm. And so I think Blizzard finally, I don't know if it was so much Blizzard as it was Activision, but that's a subject that I actually would like to touch on at some point.
All right.
At some point, they had to realize, like, hey, this is just money we're pissing away. We could recreate a game that we already made, and these donkeys would be more than willing to pay us $15 a month for it.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you turning down money then? Like, I don't understand. This is a game. You don't have to do anything different, new. You don't have to come up with anything. It's all old stuff that's already been created once before, but yet people are more than willing to pay to play it. So I'm surprised it took them this long to do it, but I think Activision probably has a hand in that. So, the whole like private server versus beta thing. I still am wary about people making direct comparisons for like, well, this isn't right. This in the beta, this doesn't match private server. So is this correct? And then they try to do all these cross comparisons and all this development level, input into it. And I'm like, to me, when you go into the beta, you should go in there with a clear mind and a clean slate. It's tough to say disregard everything you learned on private servers because there was a lot of information there. The problem was you don't know what was right and what's wrong. That opens the door for you to make a mistake when you're going into the beta. So to me, going into the beta, the mindset should have been, if it doesn't feel right, report it and move on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Don't spend all this time going, all right, we're gonna have this guy go on to the beta, and this guy's gonna go on a private server. We're gonna go at the same time, and we're just gonna compare back and forth. It's like we already know. Blizzard said the private servers were wrong. Private servers admitted they were wrong. Mm-hmm. We just don't know what they were wrong on. So it's hard to
or
use
the quantity of the wrong. Yeah, exactly.
How percent? Yeah.
So I not to interrupt you. Just real quick. So for me, it's like when going into the beta, there shouldn't be so much focus for the people invited to try and prove what's right or wrong. Just if you feel like something could be different, report it and then allow Blizzard to do that. Because I think Blizzard did majority of their work through the alpha. These guys aren't dumb. These guys know what they're doing. I know we like to shit on them a lot, but I think these guys are very smart and they know what they're doing.
Especially the classic devs, yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
I think the beta was probably 70% more for marketing and only like 30% more just getting a bunch of eyes on the game and trying to see what's going on with it. Just by the volume of streamers that were invited. Absolutely. I still would love to see the people invited be humble and take it seriously and do their best to try it and report as many bugs as they can. But ultimately, I think it was probably more for marketing than anything.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% agree with you, dude, and that's a bone of contention that I have with Blizzard, actually. I understand the reality of it. Okay, money talks and bullshit walks, I get it. But at the same time, it's like, dude, it really divided the community, man. I really think that they should have made it, either totally closed it, made it a closed beta, or literally randomly picked accounts, And, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the fact that I have beta access, but I'm trying to use it in a way that's benefiting the community. I'm trying to make videos that are either going over the beta,
even play on a PvE
theory
server.
crafting. Yeah, I'm literally playing on a PvE server because of that reason. And I felt to myself, if I went on the PvP server, I would have had a lot more fun. I'll admit that right now. And I could play with all my friends, including Defcamp. But it's like a job, right? I have to do this, and then once the beta's over, I'll go back to PvP and I'll have a good time and I'll do my thing, And of course, the streams always give me shit for it, but that's whatever. I mean, hey, that's cool, whatever. I know they're just breaking my balls, but it's just it's funny.
No, I gotta say though, he Melderon has really taken a very. I mean, I have been testing. You guys see you make fun of me with my hey guys, intro and all that.
Yeah.
But I feel like as far as a streamer go, I don't want to toot my own horn or whatever, but I feel like I've gotten a good share of.
No, you have. You've definitely reported bugs, and I think you provided me feedback that I put into videos.
Exactly.
Which is fine, but and I talking shit on people, but for the vast majority of streamers, they're doing it just to make money. And
right, well, they're doing what Blizzard wanted them to do, basically.
Well, they're doing it to fill their own pockets too.
Right, all true. Yeah. Well,
that was a point of contention I had with the majority of the streamers. Was I'm looking at some of these streams, and I see these guys I'm gonna speed level to 30 because I want to be the first guy to hit level 30 on a beta on a character that eventually is going to be deleted. But it's I see stuff like that, and immediately it's like, there's people out here that give an arm and a leg to be in this beta just to actually test it, because there are people that are so hopeful that this game is successful. They are looking forward to this game and playing it and want for this to be as authentic as possible. And you got people in the beta who are playing with have a more selfish approach to it. I want to do this, 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 and this. It's I understand you have your goals and everything, but it's you got invited to the beta. You have a responsibility and an obligation to the people that didn't get invited to make sure that when this game launches, that we get the most efficient, productive, successful, authentic, polished product as possible without bugs. Because if this thing launches and it's bug-filled and there's a lot of issues with it, eyes are going to turn to these guys who went in the beta, and it's what the hell did you guys do?
What the hell were you doing? Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. Yeah.
On one hand, I feel that way towards it, where I kind of feel a little bit of heat towards these guys, where it's I didn't get invited to the beta. I don't really care. You know what I mean? I work full time. I ain't really worried about it, so I'm not too upset about it. But it's at the same time, I see these guys, and I think I really wish you'd be a little more productive with your time. But then on the other hand, from their perspective, especially the guys that rely on the income that they make from streaming, they do have a bit of an obligation to provide entertainment to the people that are paying them their money to go on and stream. And so I do understand that. So when I see Asmongold putting a 40-man raid together to go raid a city, I'm that's time that you could be spent doing every quest, leveling as many characters as you can, looking for bugs, looking to make sure things are adding up right, and these guys are doing other stuff. Yeah. But at the same time, the people that are watching his stream, they're paying the man's bills. So
they want him to do
he's going to do what they want him to do. And at the end of the day, I can't say nothing wrong with that. He's making a living. Yeah. and I can't argue with them on it. So it sucks to see, because I would rather see them be more productive, especially a guy like him. Whether you like his personality or not, whether you find him tiring and offensive or whatever, that's not the point. He does make for a great beta alpha tester for retail, because he's a guy that is going to point out flaws and speak with someone's mind, and that stuff is beneficial.
Yeah.
Which I think it's not like he's completely useless to having a beta, even though I don't believe he played Classic WoW. But it's nothing wrong with having him there. It's just how much productivity is he actually having in the beta beyond just having 100,000 people watching him play.
Right.
Correct, and that's why I think they should have increased the amount of invites that were non-streamers. I think that would have totally quelled that whole situation. If they were like, we're going to invite, 5,000 streamers, but we're going to invite 10,000 non-streamers, something like that.
Yeah. Well,
and maybe they did that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. They may have,
honestly. It's just that we always see the streamers, right? Because their name sticks out, But we do an AV, right? Wow, there's 3 names that you realize, and the rest of them
aren't streamers. That's a good point. That's a good point. So maybe they did do that, but I don't know. It's just a far cry from what the original beta was, right? The original beta was a very raw thing. Like, here you go, here's beta keys, and just go out and do it, And I know that those days will never come back. Gaming is very different now. Ever since Twitch and YouTube came around, gaming will be fundamentally changed for the rest of our lives, and that's just unfortunately the way it's going to be, or fortunately, if you like that. But that's why the whole thing with the world buffs, and I made a video recently on it, and I'm sure it's getting some contention, and that's good because that's what I wanted. But so the reason I made that video is because I've been a staunch no changes guy since day one, until I met, number one, met Taladrill, and 2, when I started playing the PvE content in the beta. Those 2 things together made me realize that it may be more beneficial for the game to make a drastic change in world buff usage. I don't know if that's going to happen, and I probably won't, but if I didn't say anything, I would have felt like shit. You know what I mean? If I didn't say, this is a problem, in my opinion, and then the game came out and people were bitching and complaining that the PvE content was too easy, I would have thought to myself, well, I could have said something and I didn't,
Yeah. And on that whole topic, I just want to say too is like, a lot of people probably think, oh yeah, I'm sure. Like, I honestly, like, me and Melderon have talked about, like, we both have a little bit different opinions on this, and I think it's good because, like, it's never good to sit in like an echo chamber and just like, it wouldn't be good for me to just say, oh yeah, Melderon, I agree with you, even though I didn't. So like, I told him last night, I was like, dude, I don't 100% really buy the fact that it's actually an exploit, and we had this long conversation about it, and as much as I don't want the content to be just completely a face roll, I am not 100% okay about just I'm still very much on the fence, and I don't know if this is the right way to do it or not, but I do agree with the fact that I don't think world buffs were ever to be intended to be stacked in the way that they are, and for people to spend 2-3 hours and having your I did that whole thing on private servers. It's not really fun. It's really not. And honestly, like, a lot of this content would be much more fun and much more enjoyable if we didn't have to fucking waste all this time on world buffs and then just completely roll through it and know that 50% of the reason why we got through this was because of the world buffs, like, and it does make sense, and I really do understand it, but at the same time, I'm not 100% sold that it's completely an exploit in the way that like reckoning stacks were and things like that. But I honestly, like, I gave Melderon my honest opinion, told him what I thought, but this is what needs to happen. We need to have these conversations. We need to have these talks, and if we just run into it, and the other good thing about the beta is, like, the beta is honestly, I think, working as intended right now. Like, a lot of things have been changed. A lot. There's still a long way to go, I think. We've only gotten to level 40. We're testing AV right now on the weekend, which there hasn't been many bugs, honestly. Melderon looks like AV, but I think it's good because I'll log on one week and one of these bugs that I reported is fixed, and that's awesome. And I have the most, like, there is no one else in Blizz that I care more about than developers for Classic. Like, these people are not only conversing with us, they're talking with us, but I feel like they're on the same like wavelength as us, and that's good, right? Because these developers that care about Classic, they really do. But at the end of the day, you know, like if Classic comes out and it is true to what vanilla was, because like I said, a lot of us are so used to, private servers may have been up to more than 20% more difficult as far as as dungeons and things like this. If it is 100% the way it was in Classic, like, is it okay to change that to make it harder? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
like
know.
another thing, I just saw a new video by someone I didn't know. I think he's a pretty big channel, 45,000 subscribers, but I can't remember his name. But I think he's just started making Classic content. He did a pretty good dive into beta versus private server initial mob mechanics, like from levels 1 through 10. And did you know that the beta, all of the mobs from 1 to 10 seem to have some kind of newbie like cushion to them? They don't parry. You don't parry, miss, and dodge as much as on private servers.
I did notice that.
The private servers apparently like put in the core, like right from the bat, like this is what the percentage of parry, dodge, and miss should be. Whereas in Classic, there's some like cushion, and he totally figured it out. He went back and looked at it and did a mathematical analysis, and there's a huge difference. And he also noticed the thing that I noticed, which I didn't talk about in the video, which I was so dumb about, was. Did you notice that like the trash drops are really high on beta?
Yes.
Yeah, so these two things combined are actually interesting, and I didn't realize it at first. And I think it's going to significantly make the leveling process a lot, at least for the first 10 levels, a lot easier. And I didn't really think about that for a long time because I wasn't missing a lot, and I wasn't like I wasn't being parried a lot, or really good video, though. I'll try to link in the description if I remember to.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Krymzon, I wonder, like, okay, so if you think back to your first leveling experience, right? And I know it's hard to try to remember, but it was difficult, right? It was, like, for us, it was difficult. Like, I remember wiping in dungeons. I remember, dying a lot. And yes, I know my experience and my knowledge is way, way, way more comprehensive now than it was then. And I really would like to see, like, I'm sure you've watched it, the streams and have seen the beta, but do you feel like things are basically the same as they were from what you remember, as much as you can remember?
So what I remember from Vanilla WoW, one of the things I do remember, in response to the guy's video that you just mentioned about the amount of block, dodge, and parry that takes place from mobs, that being lower on beta, I could definitely say that I do remember back in the day, one of the big issues I had leveling my warrior was the fact that it was you were so underpowered, missing all the time, beating the creature down to 10% of his health, and you're at like 20% of your health, and you miss 3 times in a row, and you're worried about you're about to die.
Yep.
And if that's not happening in the beta, I think that's something that you should probably definitely investigate and look into, because that was a big part. Nowadays, I don't even know if your white hits even miss in retail.
I think they don't.
I have no idea.
I think they don't now. I think you're absolutely right about that. I heard that.
I know during, I want to say it was during maybe Pandaria, where they actually took the hit stat out of the game. You no longer had.
Oh, right.
I think you're right, Krymzon.
They took out expertise, so you didn't have to worry about being blocked, dodged, or parried. They took out hit cap, so you didn't have to worry about your spell, your yellow spell. Your melee would still miss. Your white hits would still miss, but your yellow attacks you used to have a percentage for your spells. Like for I remember as a caster, I had to have 17% hit.
Yep.
So
yeah.
And then I wouldn't have to worry about my yellow hits missing, And then I know for rogues and warriors and enhancement shamans or any melee class, they had a minimum amount of expertise and hit they had to get to so that their yellow hits would miss. Their melee they could never cap because there was ridiculous amount of hit required to get your white hits to not miss. But in retail, I haven't really paid attention to it, so I don't know if they took it out completely. But that's definitely something worth looking into.
Yeah.
So Go ahead, sorry. You just really made me think about something. If any content players listening to this, I probably won't have the time to do it. A really interesting video would be investigating how important white damage changed over the course of vanilla, because course of Warcraft. Sorry, because dude, white damage for melee classes was huge.
60, it's like 60% of your damage.
Yeah, and now it's even the numbers on retail. They made them smaller for white hits. Like,
yeah, and the yellow bigger. Yeah,
they're inconsequential. Like, and it's just a huge, stark difference between auto attack damage and how important it is. And I think it was in Wrath, dual wielding frost DKs. I think that was the last hurrah for like white damage. Like that, like for dual wielding frost DKs, white damage was a really big part of their DPS. And then it kind of just fell off after that. And I think that's the point where white damage really died. And from an RPG perspective, dude, white damage is everything, man. Like from tabletop games.
Oh, yeah.
And it's crazy how, I think that's indicative of how Warcraft has become less of an RPG. And I bet if you track that, you can also correlate it to a bunch of other stuff that kind of went down. You know what I mean?
I'm sure you could. Yeah,
just a really good video idea, and I think people, if any content creators are out there that are more comfortable with retail space, you should definitely investigate it, because I think it'd be an interesting video.
But back to what you were saying, Krymzon. So, like, one thing that I've really felt is, like, I just feel like it's got to be off, right? So, one thing is Melderon with his warrior, right? I remember watching him while he's playing on his warrior, going like 1v1, and if he made a wrong move or he missed like 3 times in a row, there's a good chance he could die from the mob that he was attacking.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if it was a lower level or around the same level. And nowadays, like on the beta, I feel like I can go in there against 3 or 4 guys that are like 2 levels higher than me and kill them, like 3 of them, no problem. And I don't know if it is because like, do I know how to use my spells better? Do I know how to do this? It just feels like there's too much of a difference, drastic difference of how easy it was to die back then and how hard it is to die now.
I think, some of it has to do with player skill, because you got to figure 15 years ago, when you first got into this game, even if you were used to MMOs, it was a tough experience and one you had to get to learn. And the game was very unforgiving, which I think helped it be such a good game. I remember being on my warrior, and if it was orange, it was tough to kill, just because it was hard to hit it. And even when you did hit it, you didn't do as much damage as you would attacking a target that was yellow or
glancing blows, right? Yeah.
So, and I just remember, I remember running on my warrior. If I could kill a tanky creature if it was red to me. And I remember testing this out in the Fellwood. I remember going in there, and when you first enter the Fellwood from Ashenvale, the first couple creatures you come across are wolves and bears. Mm-hmm. And I remember being able to kill the bears, because I was like, I'm like level 45, but I could kill like a level 48, 49 bear. But if I were to attack the wolf, they attack so much faster than me that they would beat me to death every time. And I could not kill a wolf that was higher than a bear. And I don't know what kind of relevance that has towards.
Interesting.
I think it's just another thing to note. But yeah, I definitely do remember though missing being a huge part of it, because whenever you got a piece of gear or an item that had hit on it, it was a huge impact that you felt immediately. Yeah. Because one more swing throughout your encounter can make a big difference. Because like you said earlier, if he's PvPing and if he has a miss, a block, and a parry all in a row, he's in dire straits. Because if that guy didn't miss, get blocked or parried, then the scales can tip easily in the other person's favor throughout a PvP encounter. Especially back then when you figure that PvP encounters didn't last very long for the most part.
Oh yeah.
Certain matchups could last a while, but for the most part, they would be over relatively quickly.
Yeah, I would say one of the main like things that I'm worried about right now is like the incoming damage, right? So like, obviously like a priest, when I pull in a dungeon, like and an elite starts hitting me, I can literally sit there and let an elite like beat on me and like not have to worry about it now in the beta. That doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? So I feel
the elite damage doesn't feel right.
The elite damage doesn't feel right, and like not so outgoing damage. I think is okay. You know what I mean? I'm not 100% sure, right? But it feels at least better to me than the incoming damage does. I feel like as a priest, like I'm not getting hit hard enough, or this, that, and the other. So that is something that I feel like maybe should just be double checked, and but and here's the thing, I for sure know that there are other factors, right? So latency is definitely a huge one. Like having low latency, having faster speeds, and being able to know like certain abilities to use. And like maybe I never maybe I was a noob and I never used inner fire, and that's why my armor was like 1,000 less or something. You know what I mean? Little things like this that you have to put in consideration. But at the end of the day, like people are doing, like, for the leveling process, people were doing spamming SM runs to do like 4 or 5 SM runs in an hour.
Yeah.
In an hour. And that's how people were leveling, because it was so much faster to do these dungeon runs over and over and over again than it was to actually go on level.
This is what I think happened, Defcamp and Krymzon. I think this is probably what happened, and this is really interesting to think about. So 2 things. 1, I think we're underestimating how bad people were back then.
Mm-hmm.
2, I think when private servers really started the task of emulating Warcraft, what I almost guarantee you happened is that they were testing things and they were like, there's no way it could have been this easy. Because the guys who created these private servers, I'm willing to bet, are extremely knowledgeable about the game, right? They built the game from scratch pretty much. Again. And what I think happened was they were like, wait a second, this is too easy, and they up-tuned everything. And I think what's happened is we have this like false memory of
some of us, right? Yeah.
Well, everyone in the beta,
right?
I'd say, right? I mean, the vast majority of people in the beta, and I think what's happening is we are underestimating how bad of a player base existed back then.
That's a good point.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's exactly what was running through my head when I was watching your video, and you had mentioned how much easier the dungeons were. That was one of the thoughts that I had, was that the development of these private servers was developed in mind that the game has been out at this point for a long time.
Right.
And if you are going to make this content, you're going to have people that are well aware of all of the dungeons, all of the secrets, the boss locations, the encounters, and I think they designed those with that in mind and tuned it to be more difficult to try and make up for the vast amount of knowledge that people have at this point. Because at this point, there are no secrets left. The mindset probably for them was that everybody's seen all these dungeons 100 times. Every time you do the leveling experience, you see these dungeons. So there's not much that we can surprise them with, other than just making things hit a little bit harder, so that they can't just blitzkrieg the entire dungeon. And then now that you guys are in the beta, I think when you look at private servers when they came out versus when Vanilla WoW came out, and it was the only thing, it was brand new, Blizzard probably, I would think would be safe to say, designed it and tuned it to accommodate people who had no clue what the hell they were doing. Because it was all new to everybody. Even the people that would eventually be raiding Nax Ramus, the first time they stepped foot in Raged Fire Chasm, it was brand new to them.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire expansion, knowledge was gained, and it got a little bit easier. So that way, during January of 2006, when people are playing World of Warcraft and you run a dungeon, there's a good chance that 2 or 3 of those people have been in that dungeon before. Maybe you'll have 2 or 3 people every once in a while you run into that have just recently acquired the game and are coming through for the first time, so maybe they're not too knowledgeable of it. But by the time the expansion was coming to a close and the TBC was on the way, it's safe to say that more often than not, when you got in a group, at least somebody in there knew how to navigate the dungeon. We weren't all going in completely blind. Nowadays, with the game having been out for so long, what are the chances you're going to run into somebody who hasn't seen these dungeons yet?
Yeah, and this is also why I'm really, really, really interested to see how things are at Endgame, because there definitely was a learning curve. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Blizzard was good at saying, okay, like, we're going to make the first dungeon anyone ever does, RFC, very easy compared to the other ones. And I'm wondering, like, as we level up, as things go, are they going to become more difficult? Like, will BRD feel a lot more difficult than say SM Graveyard did, because it's they at this point people have been playing, they've done dungeons before, and that's a good point. Like, you look at Molten Core, right? It's the first raid, it's an introduction to raiding. Compared to all the other raids, it's much easier because Blizzard knew that, okay, this is people's first introduction to raiding. We're not going to make it crazy. But then as you go on, then you get Nax Ramus at the end, right? So you have this huge curve of, like, in the beginning things were easy, then they got harder. Is WoW in a whole does it have that curve, right? And as far as I remember, yes, things got hard as time went on. Like, doing LBRS for the first time on my rogue was really difficult. I had a hard fucking time, doing those dungeons. UBRS, like those dungeons were much harder than the regular dungeons. So I'm really, really, really interested to see how things feel as the beta goes forward. And I'm hoping that a lot of these worries that we have about raids and all will be snuffed out, because I think there is some kind of like implementation that they did where they, had things easier in the beginning and then slowly, introduced people to new mechanics, to new things, to harder, to higher, armor, whatever, this, that, and the other. So maybe that's just something that we haven't seen enough of in the beta. And I keep on telling myself this, right? I've only leveled to level 40. At level 30, we had all the best gear. People got, we're at level 30 for a while. It had this whole meta of, like, getting people geared, we did SM Lib at level 30 with a Shaman tank, and just kind of, like, destroyed it, like, very easily. Would that have been possible back in the day? Well, not everyone would have been as geared as we were. Not everyone would have had all the knowledge that we had. We had Sea-Doo tanking it, you know what I mean? As a shaman. So you have to take all these things, little things in consideration. So I really am very hesitant to make these judgments, at least before we encounter what it's like at endgame. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Go ahead, Krymzon. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say I do believe that there's a reason they say knowledge is power. When it comes to the playthrough that you guys are doing now, with all the knowledge out there, it's not just enough to know how to play your class, to get the timing down that's necessary to be, a better player. But when you look back then, throughout the leveling process, a vast majority of the population didn't even know what stats were best for them, what gear was best for them. Nowadays, there's been so much theory crafting and min-maxing and going on that people are so well aware of what items are best for them, what stats are best for them. So you look at a level 25 on the beta, and you do a comparison. You take 100 level 25s from the beta, and you get the time machine, you go back to 2005, and you take 100 level 25s there, and you look at the way that these characters are geared, the spells that they've selected, that they've purchased. I mean, how many people were playing back in the day that didn't even have enough money to buy all of their spells?
Yeah, or put talent points and shit that was totally not good.
Yeah. I did that.
They just had no idea. They just didn't know any better. Whereas nowadays, it's been tested so much that you guys at level 30 have the optimal spec for level 30.
Yeah.
How many players do you genuinely believe in 2005 were optimally spec'd and optimally geared throughout the leveling process? Hardly any of them.
Yeah, I agree.
You add those factors in. Now, if you guys were to fuck up your specs or screw up your specs,
they can say whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I just try. I've been holding back because I curse like a sailor.
So no, don't worry.
You guys go through and take these players and power them down. Right. Put on some unconventional. Put on some whale gear. Get rid of all that effective stuff. If you guys dialed your characters back to a more conventional, practical, realistic idea of what players would have went into those dungeons like back then, I think you'll find some of your difficulty there. Because this also goes to, I didn't get a chance to say it because I forgot. Earlier when you guys mentioned the world buff, the issue that's going on here, I haven't even given any thought to it because I just never crossed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those situations where it's like, those things were there back then, and I don't see too much harm in them being there because it's something you have to go out of your way to do.
Yes.
You're going to have your guilds that are going to do it, that are going to go out there and try to get all the world buffs to make it easy as possible, and at the same time you get other people that are just like, I don't need to cheese the mechanics, I just want to show up and raid. They're there for you if you want to go and take advantage of them, but if you don't, then it's all right. You'll do that too, because one of the things that I believe separated Vanilla WoW more so than any other expansion is within the community on your server, there was this social structure, right? You had your elite that were up at the top that min-maxed everything, that were the best players on the servers, that did the best content and would do those kinds of things. Would go and get the best world buffs and all that. And that was your top rating guild, right? And beneath them you had other people that were not quite as dedicated, maybe not quite as knowledgeable, but you had these, these levels within the community, all the way down to the most casual. I'm not even going to cap. I'm just going to have 15 alts and just have the time of my life playing, right? And you had all these different levels of people within the community built into the game. You had the ones that are going to take advantage of the world buffs, and yeah, they might be the world first, but there's also quite a few people that give a shit less about being world first. And because I'm one of them, I don't really care about the world buffs. I'm just there to raid and have fun with the people I'm raiding with.
Right.
So to me, it's I'm not necessarily too worried about it. For one, they'll never have world first on Ragnarok because that was back in April of 2005. That was world first happened. So
yeah,
that's a really good point, dude.
Y'all can kill them as fast as y'all want, but the first people that ever killed them have. I was looking through your guys's damn it, Discord earlier, and I was seeing somebody talking about Classic WoW, and they were like, which by the way, it's always fun. You could always tell the people that talk out of their ass about Classic versus the people who actually played it.
Yeah.
You can spend 10 minutes with somebody. You can tell if all of the knowledge they have on Classic WoW is secondhand or if it's actually first person. And I saw somebody mention it's like, yeah, we killed Nefarian 2 weeks after BWO released. And I'm like, Nefarian was killed 77 days after.
Yeah, what are you talking? That's literally that's literally recorded.
Maybe on private servers, but not on vanilla, buddy.
Yeah, it's literally like you can find that information, right? But that's a really good point you brought up, Krymzon. Are world firsts actually world firsts, right? That's like something that. Yeah, I know it's called Classic WoW now. Okay, it's a different game. Fine. But if those are the true vanilla values, can you really say that that's a world first? I don't know.
Not really, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Go ahead, Grim. Yeah.
I was just going to say, the only thing, wouldn't be a true vanilla first. But if you consider it as a Classic WoW first, that's one thing. Yeah. But when you look at the people that are competing in mythic guilds for the mythic first kills of bosses and encounters and everything, what percentage of the entire population of World of Warcraft are actually legitimately in that race? You're talking probably less than 3-4% of the population, right?
Yeah, less than 1%, I think. Yeah.
So even lower. Yeah. And when you look back at, because I believe Blizzard did the numbers at one point, and they looked at the number of people, the number of guilds that downed Kel'Thuzad and Naxxramas at level 40, and it was less than 1% of the population, right? Those elite players have always existed. And 99% of the population could give a shit less about being world first. So you guys can have that title all you want. There'll always be those people racing for world first, and I don't really think it hurts the game. People over glorify it nowadays, and I think Blizzard has taken to really over glorifying it with all the achievements and with the way they do the game. They make the game to be rather seasonal than anything else by all the item squishes they do. You spend all this time progressing through Mythic, getting all this gear, that when the next raid content, all that stuff gets replaced by dailies. So they've gone around and have kind of glorified it a bit more than it was, but you'll have those servers and those people that do get all the world first on there, and 99% of the population can care less when they do.
Yeah.
So I'm not too really worried about the people that go for the world first.
Yeah.
Don't bother me.
And I tend.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, Defcamp.
No, I just want to say, like, when it comes to the mentality of, like, I do think some things that are going to happen in Classic, like and like you said, it will be a smaller percent of people. And what happened in private servers where, and like you said, back in the day, Krym, like, people really didn't, like, you either got the world buffs, and if you did, you did. Like, a lot of people didn't look at it that way. And a lot of this whole stack the world buff thing, that all came from private servers, right? People wanting to get, these fast times and all this, and the speed runs and stacking all this. And that is what came into that whole mindset from there. And I think, what started to happen was, a lot of the other guilds who wanted to be competitive, but that's looking at one small part of it. So I do hope that whole mentality doesn't translate into Classic WoW. I'm sure it will to a certain extent, but I also believe that for the most part, like you said, there's going to be a lot of people who just want to come and experience the game. They're going to be more of the casual type player base, and that's kind of my hope, Melderon, when it comes to the whole world buff thing. Like, they're not going to be as available as they were in private servers. They're going to have the cooldown 2 to 8 hours, whatever it was, for certain buffs. And I'm hoping that, maybe there will be those guilds up there that are all about speed runs and this, that, and the other. They'll be the ones stacking it. And the other guilds will just go and have fun and do what they will with it.
Yeah, but I agree with you guys to an extent. But there's a slide that I did in the video called the World Buff Effect.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with World Buffs is not so much that, yes, I agree, the top guilds are going to be using them. Absolutely. I can't argue that point at all. The problem with them, though, is that they're so easy to obtain that I think that even casual guilds will succumb to it. And that's just my personal opinion. I don't think we can know for sure, but what I can tell you is that private servers...
Yeah, that's what happened there. I was in a basically casual guild, and we were all... And we spent, Krymzon, I'll tell you, like a good... everyone had to log on early. We all had to go do Dire Maul. First, we get our Dire Maul buffs, right? We summon the whole raid. Everybody got the Dire Maul. Usually, like one of the last things we did were the Ani, so at this point, ZG wasn't out yet. So we'd get our Dire Maul buffs. We would get go to Fellwood, get a Songflower, get our Ani head, and that was usually it. We would do Ani head, Songflower, but still, it took a long time. And then everyone's logging out in between, so they keep their buffs and doing all this. And then, on the way to raid, here comes this Alliance guild that didn't like us, and they would wipe us, and everyone's pissed. Now everyone's all pissed because we lost our world buffs, or someone's I'm healing a tank, and you let me die, dude. My world buffs. He goes, oh man, I'm like, dude, like, you're not invincible. Just because you have world buffs, it means you're like, you had. So yes, there does like toxicity that does breed from it, but I'll be the first one to say, like, I actually didn't care, like, either way. Like, yeah, it was nice that, as a healer, I would get more crits and this, that, and the other. It's definitely more of a DPS thing, like, to see your numbers go up and this, that, and the other. But, like, I loved when we would kill Rag, or, without any world buffs. I mean, yeah, like, maybe we had our fire resistance buff from Moobers that we got from... But, like, I definitely agree with Melderon that it does feel better to know that you did it under your own power and not have to rely on, these world buffs. So... But the thing is, man, it is almost every guild that I was in or saw were all, stacking world buffs before raid, even the casual ones. And that's what happened, right? Because one person would go in there with world buffs and they would do so much more DPS. The other guy was like, oh, well, I want to get this. And then the guild leader's like, well, we'll clear it so much quicker now. So everyone just go get world buffs. And, and it becomes this, kind of like
slippery. It's like it's like a disease, right? So like, I hate to use a negative connotation, but it spreads like a virus, right? It spreads like a virus. So one person gets it, and then X person gets it, person X, and then person Y is like, holy shit, why is person X doing 30% more damage and topping the meters? This guy was a shitty player, and that's the end of it, right? I think that's the. I don't know. Again, this may not happen in every guild, but what I'm saying is like, you can't stop people from doing it, right? And if you do, we had this conversation last night. Your guild members might think you're crazy, and you're a little bit too overboard, right? Are you telling me what I can and cannot do? That's kind of that's kind of sucks as a player. But I wouldn't be surprised if some guilds were like really strict casual guilds were like, if you come to the raid with world buffs, you're not raiding. That might happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past some people. To me, it always just comes down to preference. The kind of guild that I'll be running is very. Because me and my brother and a couple of friends, we created the guild in the mindset of, we all have one thing in common, that we all got kids. We work full time. Yeah. So we're going to be raiding on the weekends and whatnot, and there's a difference between, you don't have to min-max and do all these extreme things and be so strict in order to actually be successful and have fun. No. You can do the same things they do. You may not do it as quickly, but you can still do the exact same content. And so for me, it's like, I could care less if people want to go out and get world buffs. I mean, hell, I would certainly like to have the world buffs as well, but it also just comes down to the matter of time. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the big things about the guild, that the people that I'm looking for are the people that are in the same situation I am. Now, obviously, anybody's welcome. If there's people that have the time to go get the world buffs, then you do whatever you want. Get to your heart's content. But it's like, know that it's not a requirement. And I know that there are plenty of people that just won't have the time to go get those buffs, but still would like to raid. And like that's what my guild is about. Is like everybody's got a chance to raid here. Everybody got a chance to come in, get some gear, have some fun, and kick some 3D dragon ass. So that's what we're going for here.
And I totally expect that's how our casual guild will be as well. It's kind of like, because we're going to have two guilds. One's going to be casual. The other one's going to be more of a hardcore or whatever you want to call it. So I totally expect for the casual guild to be like that, where people, if you want to come in there with them, whatever. If you don't, it's no big deal. And that's kind of like anyone's welcome. We're going to try to, obviously we want to progress, but we're not going to turn down people just because, they don't have friggin' world buffs. Like, that's ridiculous. In the casual guild, you know what I mean? Yeah. So,
well, the other thing is, and I've had this talk with a couple of members of my guild when we've been working on how we're going to distribute the gear and everything, but it's like, when you look back at those raids, the way they were tuned, you really only needed about 25 competent players who were spec'd appropriately, geared appropriately, and
for
actually
MC,
had a shred of common sense. In Molten Core, honestly, you could probably get away with 20. By the time you got to PWL, you needed about 25. By the time you got to AQ40, the last 4 bosses, you probably need around 30 people to know what they were doing. And obviously, next, you really couldn't afford to carry anybody.
Yeah.
But also, there's when you look at the timeline, Molten Core was available from the beginning in November 2004.
Right.
Nax came out, I think, in June 2006. So that's almost 2 years that people got to get better. So I've looked at it as, we need the top 25 people to carry the remaining 15. And I have no problem with bringing a meme spec. I'll let a Shadow Priest come in. You want to run out of DPS and wand the boss, go right ahead.
Absolutely.
Bringing in that enhancement shaman, bringing in an elemental shaman, play to your heart's content. Because I've also looked at it as, people are like, well, why bring in an elemental shaman when you can bring in a frost mage who's going to do more damage? It's like, well, I understand that.
It's not just about damage, though. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you look at the utility they bring, and it's like, well, yeah, but he's in a DPS spec, but he's not doing as good DPS as a mage. It's like, okay, but he's also a hybrid.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like
he can also heal when he needs to. He can also, drop totems and do this. Yeah. So
the only thing that mage can do is damage. So he should be more efficient at doing damage than an elemental shaman.
Absolutely.
Yeah, from an RPG perspective, absolutely.
Yeah.
But in a pinch, that elemental shaman still has a chain heal spell that he can throw out there to help, whereas the mage can hit you with a fucking bandage.
It's also got Wind Fury totem.
Yeah, he's got totems. He's got an egg. He can resurrect himself. He's got a lot more utility that he can bring that will more than make up for a couple, maybe 100. 150 points.
Same thing with the Boomkin, man. I mean, Boomkins, they got battle res. You got Innervate. You have 3% spell crit. Put them in a group with the mages. It's 3% spell crit right there, plus an Innervate. Plus that's what I love the idea of bringing hybrids as well. And just like I said, dude, if they're competent and you have a full raid of competent people, there's room for 5 to 10 hybrids depending on what kind of raid you're running. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, another thing is we have to realize is this could be our only shot at this, right? Do we really want to rush through it?
Hell no, absolutely not.
That's my thing. Is it's like this. It's like you meet someone you really care about, or a friend or whatever, and you go hang out with that person. Do you think about when you go to that person's house, or you meet somewhere, maybe it's a girl? Do you think about when you're going to leave, right when you get there?
No. Right.
And that's my point. It's like, if we're doing this to enjoy it, and I know some people get enjoyment out of the speed leveling and the min-maxing, I get it, but I think that's a very small percentage of the population. Who cares if you down rag 15 seconds slower because you have an elemental shaman? Yeah. I just don't see the point. I don't see why it's an issue.
I care that I did it with my friends and had fun. That's what I care about.
You know that's what I'm. Yeah.
And a lot of people get, like you said, they get different things out of, you know what I mean. But for the most part, I don't mind. We were talking about this last night. Someone was like, "Oh, it would suck if MC's out for 4 months." I would love that. I would love to have MC out for a while so I can, get focus on my one guy, get him geared up, do some PvP, level and all. I honestly would love for Classic to be out for 2 years, at least 2 years where we have Classic WoW where it progresses, almost maybe a little bit faster than it did in actual vanilla. But honestly, I'm okay with having it because I think there's so much I want to experience on the side of PvP, on the side of it'll give me time to play an alt, it'll give me time to do all A lot of people say, "Oh, well, it's going to get boring." I'm like, no, like this is our shot to play classic WoW, dude. Like, take your time and smell the roses, man. Like, it's here, it's coming. You know, there's no rush for me, baby. I'm going to enjoy every minute of it.
Yeah, to the people that want to just blitz through the content and then sit around and wait for the rest of it, it's like, you know, those people always say this, you know, when you were in, you know, when you were in school or just throughout life, when, you know, you'd go and hang out with a friend, not knowing that after that day, when you went home or when you went somewhere, that was the last time you were ever going to see that person again. And it's like, if you got the opportunity to go back, you'd make everything you could out of that moment.
Yep.
You know,
dude, that's a really good point.
Be there. You know, it's like there was, you know, one day you went to school and you saw all your friends, and then the next day you graduated and you'll never see those guys again. And you look back and you think about all the time you wasted, and it's like, I wish I would have enjoyed that more. I wish I would have taken my time more. That's what I'm going to do with WoW, because I know at some point it's not going to be there. So I'm going to enjoy my time, because I look back at classic WoW, read vanilla WoW, and I think to myself, the Burning Crusade came out, and I thought that I was never going to get a chance to go back and do those things that I didn't do, that I wish I could have done. Now I get that opportunity, so damn right I'm going to enjoy every second of it, and I'm going to take my time, and I'm going to have an absolute blast, because I don't know if they're going to open up new servers. I don't know what the future's going to be like. Yeah. All I know is Classic WoW's coming. I'm going to have a hell of a lot of fun with it, and I sincerely hope that this is very, very successful for Blizzard, because I don't know where Blizzard's going to be 10 years from now. And I'm hoping that Classic WoW is going to help propel Blizzard into a more positive direction, because with all the shit that's going on in Activision, with how far Blizzard has fallen from the heights of 2010 or 2009 when Wrath of the Lich King was out and they were, you know, the king of the market, they've fallen so far. I would love to see them rebound and get going back in a different direction, because you know, this game has meant a lot to quite a few people. It's one thing I'll give Blizzard credit for when it came to World of Warcraft was this video game transcended beyond just mindless entertainment to
change my life,
kill
dude.
time. Exactly.
Yeah.
This was a cultural phenomenon. This game did so much more than just occupy your time. This game, you made friends that you'll know for life. This game taught you a lot of valuable lessons, especially when it comes to hard work. You know, this game was something
and socialization.
So spectacular. Yeah. So to me, I really want to see Classic WoW succeed, and I'm definitely going to take my time and enjoy with it, because I don't know how long it's going to be around, and I don't know what the future holds for Blizzard. But I had an opportunity once to play vanilla WoW, and you know, as fond as those memories are, there was a lot of stuff left undone that I want to hope to achieve this time.
Dude, that was
very,
so well
very
said.
Well said.
And that really hit me with the, you know, if you knew at the moment when you were hanging out with someone, would that be the last time you saw them? That really hits home with me. And I think that this is our chance to literally go back in time. How many chances do we get as human beings to do that? It never happens, really.
Almost done. Yeah.
And we're able to go back to a time that we loved. We're different. Our bodies are different. Our
the game's
personality is different.
Yeah.
The game's a little bit different, but
it's
you can go back and do things the way you want to do them now, and try things. And if this is perpetual, if they do fresh servers for the rest of our lives, this is something we could actually delve into and live. It's a very profound thing you just said, and I don't think I've ever thought of it that way.
That's a really good way to think of it, dude. And I want to ask you, Krymzon, now that we're getting a little bit closer, what are some of those things that you really look forward to doing? What are some of those things that you want to do in Classic?
Well, for me, one of the things that stuck out the most in Classic for me was just playing with other people. I had a relatively lonely childhood, despite having a brother and a family full of people. I had a pretty lonely childhood, so I did everything by myself. I always played games by myself. I played by myself and everything. And so when I joined World of Warcraft, for me it was really cool to actually play with other people. Yeah. So one of my favorite things was doing quests with other people, running dungeons with other people, and I never got the chance to do the progression rating, which is one of the things I'm looking forward to the most. But the other big thing is finally getting to play with my brother.
Oh, dude,
that's awesome.
When one of the things so the hype video for Classic WoW was in 2017 at BlizzCon. Mm-hmm. And shortly after that, I was like, oh, shoot, I can't wait for that to come out. And then I got to thinking about, like, well, when it does, what am I going to play, right? Mm. And I made Paladin up to 80. I ran through next Rammus, then Ulduar came out, and I'd rather beat my balls with a rubber tack hammer than run that dungeon. So I was like, screw this, I'm just going to level another class and roll right the next content. And so I did. I leveled my mage, got through TOC, got into ICC, and had the most fun time raiding I ever had. And I played mage ever since. I've never really been an alt guy. I played my main character and that's it. So it's been mage since 2000.
Nice.
And so I was thinking about mage at first, but then I was like, I've guild leaded on 2 occasions, raid leaded on 2 occasions, and that was probably the most fun I ever had. Like, that was a lot of fun for me. So I thought, screw it, we're going to do a guild. And so as I started thumbing through videos on the internet, because I've never really been one to consult videos on how to play my class. I was a target dummy whore. I would go to the target dummies, just attack for hours on end, especially on my mage. And I got to the point where I was always tops on my DPS. I always strove to be the best on DPS, take as little damage as possible, coordinate the raids the best I could. I was always, very competitive person. And so I never really had to consult anything on the mage. I figured it out on my own. I wanted to see what vanilla was like as playing a mage, because again, I only played Paladin and Warrior.
Right.
And that's when the first video I found was from the guy Frostradamus.
Mm. Oh yeah.
I think.
Great. Love Frost. Yeah, he plays mage. Yeah, so probably. Yeah.
From there, I saw a video. Cargos did a video for all 9 classes. The very first one he did was on the Hunter, and it was just like a still shot with some slideshows, and he went over all the basic information for the classes. And then I would wait until each one of the new ones came out until he finally did Mage, because I think the last one he did was Shaman, but he did each one of these videos. And once the Shaman one came out, he had consulted Dr. Melderon here on how to play the Shaman. And so from there, one of your guys' videos popped up, and I don't remember which one it was, but it was one of the ones where it was just Melderon. I hadn't heard your voice yet, Defcamp, so I didn't realize Defcamp and Melderon was actually 2 people. I just thought that was the name of your channel. Yeah. Until I watched the video, I'm like, who the fuck's this other guy talking?
He never shuts up. No, I'm just joking. Sorry, go ahead.
The video, though, that got me to subscribe to your guys' channel, because it resonated with me so much, was you guys did probably about, I'd say, like maybe an hour and a half long video. And it was just a still shot, just with the audio. Oh. Y'all didn't have your ugly mugs up there. And I remember watching the video, and you guys talked about growing up, getting into video games, your guys' lives, together, or growing up and getting into everything. And that really resonated with me, because it's like growing up for me, the first 7 years of my life, everything was normal. We had a little nuclear family. Mm-hmm. My mom, my dad, my brother, myself. My brother and I had different dads, but when there came a point in our life where my mom and dad split up, and he just, hit the exit and kept on going. Shortly after that, we lost the place where we lived at, and my mom was essentially homeless, and rather than have us, be homeless along beside her, she wanted to send us to go live with her mom, my grandmother on my mom's side, but my grandmother only wanted my brother. My brother never met his dad. He's 6 years older than me, and he never met his dad. So when my mom had him, she was still living with my grandmother and my grandfather. So my grandfather was was the only father figure in his life until my mom met Lewis, my dad. And Lewis adopted my brother and everything, and we had a little family. But once they split up, she had always resented Lewis for, in her mind, taking Keith from her, from my grandmother's perspective. And me being obviously kin to Lewis, she didn't see too highly of me. So she didn't want me, and she didn't really give a shit where I went either. So I went to go live with my other grandmother on my dad's side. So I didn't get to grow up with my brother for a good portion of my life. And it was unfortunate. There's way more depth to that, but I'm not going to get into that. But so I never really got a chance to grow up with him. So hearing you guys, talk about your lives growing up, I was very envious of the relationship you guys have, because I always wanted that with my brother. So it's one of the things that really attracted me to the channel, and it's one of the things I look forward to in Classic, is the fact that I am going to get to play with him, and we are going to go back and play through Vanilla WoW together.
That's awesome,
That
dude.
shit's going to be awesome for me.
That's
awesome,
fucking
dude.
awesome, man.
That's
Thank
really
you for
good.
sharing that with us, because that's. We're so lucky, Melderon, that we have the relationship that we do.
Yeah.
It's like, even when he was living in, Kansas, we still had WoW to keep us together. So
yeah, one of my best friends, Jerry, Matt, has always said a similar thing, Krymzon, about our relationship, and I guess I never really realized it until someone said it to me, because you don't realize, you really don't. It's really hard to compare other people's relationships with their brothers and stuff like that, and Jerry, always says to me, he's like, I'm really jealous of how close you guys are, because my brother and I aren't close. And they grew up in the same house and had the same parents. And it's really interesting to see when people say stuff like that, because thank you for saying it, number one. And two, I guess sometimes we need to really think about that and kind of put things into perspective. And
because there have been times where, knowing my past and all that, without Melderon there, I probably would not I wouldn't probably even be alive today. So, having that kind of support definitely means a lot. But you know what, man?
So,
that's the beautiful thing about this game, is like, you can meet people, and hopefully you play with your brother, and that gets your relationship close together with a close bond. But this game brings people together. It really does. We have met so many amazing people from doing this channel and everything we've done. I mean, you see it on stream, right? The people on stream, we have the most amazing community. We really do, and it's unbelievable. And the kind of people that we've, I guess, attracted, I don't know, or the kind of people that have just come to our channel has just been absolutely, absolutely amazing. And yourself included, brother. It's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure to be a part of it. Like,
I appreciate it. And the thing is, when it comes to you guys, people, like, one of the reasons you become friends with people in a lot of cases is because there's something about them that you find relatable or comfortable, and you guys usually will share some things in common. And when it comes to your channel, I think the one thing that really sticks out to most people, and I think it's what attracts them to your channel, is your guys' passion for the game and how much you guys enjoy it. And it goes far beyond just your knowledge of the game. Anybody can be knowledgeable about the game, but it's the amount of love that you guys have for the game that I think people in this community share. And I think it's probably their favorite thing about being in this community.
Yeah,
is they look at this and it's like, I really do enjoy this game. I'm really passionate about it. I hope it succeeds. And these guys, they feel the exact same way. And so that's why they're here. That's why they support you. That's why they want to be here. And so that's one of the things I want to say thank you to you guys for, is just for sharing the same passion that we all do. And it's definitely one of the reasons why that, myself and everybody else supports you guys.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Really
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
That's really it's kind of it's an amazing feeling, because like when we first made this channel, it was like one of those things where I was so angry that they shut down the Stalrius, and that was why I did it. And and then you just it just morphs and changes over the years into something different. And whether it's grouping up with CWL or meeting you people, and it's just a totally different. It keeps evolving into something more, but it's always better. It's always better than it was before. It keeps getting good, and because of you guys, that's the thing. And it's like, we wish we can be more, I wish I can talk to all of you guys every day, or and that's not possible. And that's just the way life is. But you guys stick with us either way, and that's really,
it means a lot.
Yeah. But
yeah, man, I playing like classic. It's gonna be fucking amazing. It really is. Like, we get to play not only the game that we all love, but people that we love. Like, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking most forward to, is just the community. The game itself obviously was still amazing, all the RPG elements and stuff like that, and that's one of the things I'm looking forward to going back to, because I was one of those people, and I think a vast majority of the population of people left in retail WoW that played vanilla WoW. I think that they kind of play for the same reasons I do, in that at the end of the day, there's a comfort you can find in that, just being in Azeroth. And it's like, well, it's still World of Warcraft. It's nothing like what it was in vanilla, but it's still WoW. I played like that for many years. The only reason I played retail is because it was still vanilla. It was still World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
And so I think there's quite a few people that felt that way about the game, but it wasn't just vanilla that I liked about World of Warcraft. It was just doing dungeons with people, because all the aspects of the game that you could experience by yourself, to me, I always found were more fun when you had somebody there with you.
Absolutely.
When you look at your best memories from vanilla at any point in World of Warcraft, if you look at your best memories, how many of those memories were by yourself and how many were actually with other people?
Oh, they're all with other people. All of them.
Exactly. So I felt like retail has gone pretty far towards taking the MMO aspect out of it. Yeah, there's a lot of people running around, but there's so much of the game you can do on your own, and there's so much. There's such a lack of communication within the game that's just natural nowadays, especially when it comes to like running dungeons. It's I know it's still considered an MMO RPG, but to be honest with you, the RPG element is really far away. It's just a fantasy game at this point, and then even the MMO part is a stretch. There might be a lot of people playing it, but how involved are you actually with those people? They're just faceless, nameless characters.
It could be
running
NPCs
around.
for all you know. Yeah.
Yeah, they really could.
Yeah.
Or you can go the South Park route. Like I bet you they're all Chinese.
Yeah. They're all,
But dude, it was this was like this was a really good Def Talk.
This was awesome. Seriously.
I really learned a lot, and it's just crazy because you talk to people on Discord and you don't know who the hell they are, and it's like, what is this going to be like? What are they going to sound like? What are they, and it's like every single time I've been, my expectations have been like, the reality has been way better than my not saying that I expect you guys not to be good, but it's like I cannot believe, I'm always dumbfounded how well spoken and how well thought everyone's opinions are. Like it's just it's crazy. Like it
is literally insane. Like we haven't had like one where we're like, oh well, this one was okay. Like they literally all just been amazing. Like it's
don't want to talk to that guy again.
Yeah.
That never happened. That literally never happened.
Literally,
so
seriously.
It's like, I mean, there are people that we probably shouldn't talk to again, not because we don't want to, but
right.
That's an inside joke. Anyway, but well, let me do a quick cleanup. So basically, guys, Def Talk is a podcast that we produce. We're supposed to produce it every month, or maybe even sooner than that, but we've been slacking because of beta, work, you name it. But we upload them to YouTube, of course, and we also upload them to SoundCloud, which is through RSS feed, goes to Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and iTunes, so you can listen to us on there. We also upload Good Morning Azeroth on there, our other podcast we do at Cargos and Dunedain. And we also upload it to the Classic Wild Out Live YouTube channel, and all those things will be in the description. All the links will be in the description. I want to thank the patrons who make our videos possible and who donate. And we also want to thank the stream team who also regularly support Defcamp on his streams, which are on Twitch and YouTube. So check those out if you didn't know Defcamp does stream. So thank you all those people. And there's like a list of, I have to say it's like 30, 40 people who regularly contribute to our channel, and that money goes back into either getting us new equipment or that's just it. We try to make stuff better, right? We both have jobs, so. We're not like, we don't need money, but at the same time, if you guys are going to do that, we're going to put it towards the content, either the website or hardware or software. So we really appreciate that. And finally, just like and subscribe if you like our content. And I think that's about it.
Yeah, guys, seriously, thank you again. We recently just hit over 15,000 subscribers. So fucking that's amazing. Yep. 15,000, That's awesome. So we love you guys, and this is Defcamp,
Melderon, and our guest,
Krymzon28.
Signing off. Keep on keyboarding and grinding.
Oh yeah, hope to see you guys in Classic Azeroth. Take it easy.
Peace.
Later, guys.